Okay, we're good. We're live.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great.
Just working on getting everything pulled up on my computer. I just barely got done from playing basketball, so trying to find all my notes.
Cool.
If I can find them. Okay, got them. So start with the prayer.
All right. I can go ahead and do that if you want.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we can meet tonight, and we're so thankful for the lessons that we've been able to learn so far in this course. And please bless that we can have a beneficial meeting tonight that will help us gain more insight and knowledge on how to be better entrepreneurs. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you.
And then any spiritual thoughts?
For this week. Well, I was learning today and yesterday pretty much about the importance of Jesus Christ in our lives. I was reading the importance and also the representation he had in when the creation was taking place, and also in the importance that he has in every single one of our lives. For example, Jesus was commanded by the Father, as we read in Moses chapter 2 and chapter 3, and also in Abraham chapter 4, he was commanded by the Father to create this earth for we all. And that was not the only thing that Jesus made for we all, because afterwards, when the council take place, Jesus was offering himself to be our savior, to redeem us from our sins. So I was thinking about the huge impact that Jesus has in every single one of our lives, because just thinking about taking Jesus off from the plan of salvation, we have nothing. So we need to think about how we can be more grateful about when partaking of the sacrament, when partaking of this important ordinance, thinking about the importance that he had in our lives and the importance that he needs to have in our lives. That way we will be able to be more grateful about his sacrifice and about all things that he made for us. Because I was reading on Doctrine and Covenants, section 19, from verses, I think it's 14 through 19, when it is letting us know if we do not repent from our sins, we will suffer as Jesus did. And on the scripture says that we don't really know how the pain was, and we don't really know how the pain will be, because we're not going to be able to support it.
Okay.
Or even to hold it. Just we need to be grateful with what we have right now, and that our position is just to follow his commandments and keep us away to go astray, and that way to feel grateful about all blessings we were able to get from Jesus' help. That was what I was learning this week.
It's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Alrighty, so this case study was Cake Financial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With Mr. Carpenter.
Correct.
So so the first part was like, where's it at? Shoot.
That's the opening. And since we need to discuss about a business model.
Oh yeah. So like the customer value proposition, go-to-market plan, technology and operation strategy, and cash flow formula, right?
Yeah.
So it's customer value proposition. I mean, I was trying to like really understand what this question was saying, but if like from what I understood, I guess it was basically just like their plan for this, or their their business model was that like all the current people in this industry weren't satisfied with what the industry was offering at that time. So he figured he could give the customers a different value or something of better value in this industry. That's kind of what I was getting from that part, I think.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that we needed to talk about during this question was with the elements given, such as the customer value and all the other 3 items, is that we needed to think about the business model this company was handling. I think this company was just having the technology and operation strategy because they were very good at what they were doing, but not to sell what they were doing. Because for some years they did not have any revenue. I mean, they were not selling nothing. I think the go-to-market, the customer value proposition, they don't even know what the customer was looking for, the satisfaction they had with their product. So I think the unique business model they had was the technology and operation strategy, besides from the other ones that we were able to read in this section.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't seem to like kind of go out and figure out what their customers wanted. They kind of jumped into it and quickly created the wireframe and went out and tried to get and got investment money, which I was actually kind of shocked they got investment money so easy without actually doing. It didn't really seem like they did a whole lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think because one of the things they were saying in the case was that the owner, at least Carpenter, was saying that he didn't think they could get very much more information just by doing like their polls or like their questions that they were sending out to people, like from the data that they had in the case study. But what I think they should have done was like drop the whole TechCrunch 40, get out with the whole shebang and try and beat that competition. And I think they should have gone for like beta testings, come out with something small that didn't cost them as much money, find out what the market really wanted, because they wasted all that time and money trying to build a social media platform along with their investing platform. And the social media platform was a total failure. Like no one used it because it was all these 40 to 50-year-old guys using their platform. So it's just a waste of time.
And what I'm wondering too is, and I wonder why I feel like maybe I missed this, but they didn't seem to ask like, would you be comfortable with posting your stock portfolio for everybody to see? Because for a lot of, I mean, it seems kind of like private information. Like I don't think they can get a lot of your information, but it's private to you almost.
Yes. Well, by reading the point number 4, it says that whenever we recapped and recreated this business model, we need to think about if it was a doomed since the beginning, or if it was a promising business model. Just relating what you were mentioning with a specific question, they were having, in my perspective, a very good idea, but they didn't know how to sell it because they had many engineers working at the office, but they really were not thinking about how we are going to sell this product. Yeah. What are we going to do to convince our guests, our consumers to come to our website? What, as you were mentioning, Kevin, what information they would like to share with others to make a community, to build a community. That way they were going to be able to rank a very good position with this business. But I would say is that this was as the question says, was cake doomed from the beginning? I will support that part because they were thinking about the product, but just about the product, nothing else.
I agree. I don't think they like really planned it out enough. I think they jumped into it too soon. And what they should have done, and what I'm actually learning, I'm taking BE 383, and we're taught to like create a minimum viable product. So you create something super simple, and then you go out and you ask consumers, is this something you'd like? And if it's if they're like, oh yeah, that seems cool, but like add this, then you pivot and make changes. And I feel like they didn't do that. I think they just kind of jumped into it and just assumed that it would be big. And so yeah, I think it was kind of doomed from the beginning, just because I don't think they had like a proper plan to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was kind of on the same page as you guys. I was basically saying that, I mean, I feel like if they would have dropped the whole TechCrunch 40 like competition thing, and they would have done their original plan to come out with a beta test and like a small group of people test it and get their opinion on it, I feel like they could have made it better, because then they wouldn't have wasted all that time engineering their website on the back end, and they could have focused on the front end and making it more user friendly and realizing they should drop the social media part. But I mean, as soon as they started to do the TechCrunch 40 program thing or whatever, the competition thing, I just said they were doomed at that point, because they just going straight into it head on and launching a big product like that with little information, just it wasn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another thing that I saw is like,
So I guess we're kind of all on the same page there.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess one more thing I was going to add in, just to begin with, they got their investment money and then they immediately went and got like a place in San Francisco, which isn't cheap. And so I don't know if they were using their investment money wisely. And I understand that a lot of startups want to go and be in Silicon Valley and they want to have this, they want that experience. But I think to a certain extent, you need to be careful. Like you need to like start the business out of an apartment or do something where you use your investment money wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what was interesting with Dropbox, is they did start out of their apartment for like 6 months or something. I remember reading or something like that. I just know they started out of their apartment in Dropbox, and then they moved into an office, and it was him and his buddy, or him and then like his one employee, and then they started adding more people. But yeah, that's a really good point, because San Francisco is not cheap.
Yeah, not at all.
Okay, but going with the next one, it says, beginning with those who say that it was a promising business model, tell the group what you like about it, provide a convincing argument in favor of the business. What evidence from the case can you use to support your position? I think we all three think that it was not a good business model. Yeah. So moving on, it says, next, allow those who feel Cake was doomed from the outset to try to convince the group why, which assumptions turn out to be false. What I would mention about this, there is something which is called the business model canvas. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard before about this. The business model canvas means that we need to go out of the building, and first of all, we need to do a forecast of what we want to sell. Yeah. Then to do a research about what clients, about what the customers are looking for, what their current needs are, how they would like to have the product being presented, and also make some propositions, and also to estimate the value our product will have inside of our customer's life, if they will be able to spend a certain amount of money, if we are going to compete with some other products. So that way we will be able to position our product maybe at the same or a little bit more expensive price than the competition, but because we will be providing what the customer is looking for. And by doing this research, going out of the building, it will let us know, it will help us to analyze our costs, expenses, our management positions, our process to build the product, so that way we're going to be able to match into the market. Because I think they were missing this important part, how to launch a business.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I'm learning about the business model canvas this semester, and it's definitely seems way better when starting a business to use that. And then, pivot when you go out, because it's all about getting out of the building, talking to consumers, and then when they give you their feedback, then that's when you pivot.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that as well. But I think it like you guys were saying, I mean, it's not hard to see that it was going to fail from the beginning, just with what their situation was and how they were going about doing it. But I feel like the overall idea was good that he had. It just wasn't.
I wasn't a huge fan of the name either. It's a little confusing for an investment, and plus I don't think social media sites with two things because it was like cake investing or something like that. And I feel like if it's a social media site, it should be one word because you have like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like it's all one word. And so I feel like it gets a little long in the up too. And I think maybe they should have stuck with their original name. I think Portfolio or something like that.
Yeah.
Gone somewhere else because I think cake is a little confusing.
Yeah.
An investment social
Yeah.
media site.
Yeah, that's actually a good point too. Okay, going on to the next one. Next, discuss Stephen's approach to the opportunity. Try to understand what, if anything, Stephen could have done differently that may have produced a better outcome. I just came up with like 3 main things that I saw. Obviously, there's a ton of things he could have done different, but like 3 main things that I saw is that he should have launched like some kind of beta test to see what the market's thoughts were, get input on it, and see what they needed to improve before making their full-blown launch. Next thing I thought was that they should have come out with like a lower budget test because he went to a lot of these investors and a lot of the investors said, come back in like 6 months once you have it up and running and show us what you have. So they should have like made a lower budget thing that they could come out with that they could take to investors and be like, look, we have this idea. You're interested in it. Let's get some investing so we can make it better. And then I think they should have spent more time on like the front end. It was one of the other things, the company that won the TechCrunch 40 or whatever, I can't remember what it was called. I wrote it down somewhere. But the company that won it like did exactly the opposite as Cake Financial and basically focused on more their front end of their website, making it more attractive, making it more user friendly, and they won that TechCrunch 40 competition for business startups. I mean, I feel like they should have focused on making it a little bit user friendly when they were saying they focused highly on the back end, getting all the algorithms set up so they could plug into all the different, all their different, whatever I'm trying to think of that, the brokerages. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because I'm looking at the wireframes again, and it's a little scattered. And I think what they should have done is they should have had like a graphic designer or something, somebody come in.
Yeah.
And I think what happened is you had too many engineers working on it, so they wanted to like get fancy with the back end portion. So the front end portion ended up being kind of confusing and clunky, and so maybe people just didn't understand how to register or how to connect their brokerage accounts to the website. You mentioned that when people visited their site, only 2 to 3% actually subscribed to the website, and then even less than that attached their brokerage accounts to the website. So maybe it was just too confusing for people to figure out how to do that stuff.
Yes, that's true. And one thing that I think they were missing was their target market, because they didn't know whom was going to use their website, their platform. That is why they were not able or capable to build a website to satisfy their customer needs. Because written in the case, until they hired a market guy, they were able to start generating revenue. And just one person doing the marketing section of this company, they're starting to generate revenues up to $30,000. So just with one market agent, they were able to raise that amount of money, $30,000. Just imagine, by having, instead of 16 engineers and just one marketing person, if we switch it, like having 2 or 3 engineers and then like 10 marketing agents, they were going to be able to raise a lot of money, because they were going to be able to target their market and build still their platform, having 3 or 4 engineers working in the company, having the same amount of employees, spending the same amount of money, but generating a lot of more revenue. Because I think this was the missing part, because until they were able to realize that they were not making any revenue for at least, I think it was a couple of years, if not mistaken, they were not able to make any revenue at all. Carpenters realized that we need to do something different. So that is why he was able to hire one market guy. So that was making the difference. But that was too late to recover that company. So by thinking of this since the very beginning, they were going to be able to switch that strategy by having more marketing guys and less engineers. So I think this was the thing that it was going to produce a better outcome for this company.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting too, that they went like, yeah, I think it was like 2 years without having any kind of revenue coming in. They weren't charging people any kind of a fee or having like any kind of special elite program with their software. So it's just like, what are you doing? Like you've got to give them some kind of fee for like the upper level part of their system. And I just thought that was really interesting that they didn't have any kind of revenue coming in as well.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yes. Now, with the quote which has been given, where it says on page 3, Stephen says, in regards to this paragraph, it's thinking about how he was able to build the company and all of that, and having all this issues and all what you were mentioning as well about the information they were sharing for the portfolios and all of that. I think that was one of the things as well that was not making this company to catch the customer's attention, because it was something that they were not looking for. Maybe that was something good, that was something very interesting, but not merely something that were going to satisfy their needs.
Yeah.
Because one important part on the second line, it says, but we did not seek feedback on a specific product. So they were too worried about how their product was working and not merely in getting feedback about how they were doing, because if they were able just to look for at least some feedback, they were going to be able to realize it before then going too far in this company by having no revenue at all.
Yeah. They really needed to get some major customer feedback and that revenue coming in as well. And I thought it was interesting, like at the very beginning he was saying his projection was 82 by 2010, or yeah, about 2010, he was saying he was going to be making $82 million a year in revenue, with 21% coming from advertising lead generation, 43 and sponsorship, 43% from premium services, which is where I thought like they were going to have that right off the bat, their premium service where they're going to charge however many dollars, like $100 for the year or whatever, and then 36% for data licensing and fund fees. So it was just like he had this whole plan of like his revenue coming in, but then it wasn't even in place really for like 2 years. So that was.
It hurts because they invested a lot of money.
Yeah.
And on the point of what says in page 10, Stephen says, there is no way you could have learned this up front through interviews or focus groups. I will regret with this, because if we go ahead and look for the customer's needs, I am going to be able to come up by doing polls and all of that, and by sharing my ideas, not merely my ideas or my business plans, but just gathering information, I am going to be able to come up with something. So there is a way to come with this up front before launching a business, with what I was mentioning before, something which is called the business model canvas. It is making us to think about something before producing it, to plan for something before we're going to launch something, so that we're going to maybe we're going to face some problems and some issues that come along with every single thing we do, but not to go into the bankruptcy section. So from my perspective, if we want to do something, and if we want to do it very well, first of all, we're going to study the area we're going to be working on, and then we can proceed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is definitely possible that they could have learned if it was a good idea. Maybe he thought that his idea was going to be taken if he goes out and talks to people. And maybe that's why he says it's not possible. But sometimes you have to risk it and go out and like ask people, and you can ask people in a way where you don't give away your entire idea. And I mean, at the end of the day, he didn't ask really anybody about it, and it ended up failing. So I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. So the next part, as a group, can you come up with a list of ways Steven's approach is different from Rent the Runway, Dropbox, and Mint? How do you know which assumption to test first? Was building the data layer first the right approach? What would you have done first? So, I mean, to start off, Steven's approach was different from, well, I mean, Dropbox, because like we were just saying earlier, how they started off in San Francisco and a building out there rather than starting off in your apartment and getting it going in there as a startup.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one thing I saw, lack of planning compared to Rent the Runway. I felt Rent the Runway. Those two women just went to all these different like clothing designers, and they went and interviewed like 20 of them and asked them, like, is it like, do you guys think this is going to work? Would you support us? And they went out and did that. And I think that was excellent thing they did versus what Steven Carpenter did on this one.
Yeah, and to go along with that, I mean, the two women that started Rent the Runway, I mean, it mentioned in the case study that they didn't really know anything about the fashion industry. Women who went out and learned about the industry and then like killed it, and they created a website where they were able to bring in a bunch of people. So it's definitely different.
Yes. One interesting thing is that for the Rent the Runaway, they were told exactly the same thing, to go back with the designers whenever they had something built already. That was the exact same thing the Carpenters was told, but he was kind of giving up. But for the Runaway couple, they were going back. They went back to the designers, and they were able to convince them. Now, for business, where the money is in sales. If he was thinking about more in the product more than in sales, as the Rent the Runaway was thinking about how to launch their business by getting a lot of information and getting thousands of customers in a very short period of time, that was a difference, because they were having the balance, working in the product, working in the with the designers, and also they were working in the target market. So they were working in those three different areas. So that way they were able to be successful because they were working with the three main areas for business: the customers, how they will get the product, and their company structure. But this carpenter was just working in the company structure more than in the target market and how he was going to sell the product.
Yeah, I agree there. And like, so going back to Mint, the company that won the TechCrunch 40 competition or whatever, it said, he specifically said like they won it, and they did almost exactly the opposite of what he did. They focused more on the front end of their website. They focused on making it user friendly and everything. So I guess that kind of goes into the next thing, was building the data layer first the right approach. Because they spent like all that time building data layers for these 12 different brokerages, I think. And they spent all that time, and then their front end of their website was just like kind of, it just didn't look nice. It didn't look user friendly, I felt like. So
Yeah.
I feel like they should have started with the front end first and then built in, because the front end of their website wouldn't have taken near as long as that back end of doing all those algorithms. Once they got that front end, it would be way easier just to maybe start with 3 or 4 brokerages, send out a beta test, and have people try it and see what they think.
I completely agree. Because, when you get the front end like finished and you know what it's going to look like, then it's a lot easier to just go in and kind of like link everything up in the back end.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough to go back end first and then the front end after. And I think that's kind of what they did. Even when they had a wireframe, I still think they didn't get everything perfect, and the design needs to be perfect before I think you start back end. So they needed a graphic designer or something.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So as a group, identify the main reason for Cake's failure. I think it was just lack of planning. I mean, that's pretty vague, really vague.
Mm-hmm.
But there should have been more planning. Like, yeah. And like just like you guys were saying about the business model canvas, like there should have just been better plan set, better organization, and with the specific intent in mind, and to just go for it rather than to be juggling around a bunch of things.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. It says in the next point that was the failure just beyond Steven's control? I would say yes, because he had a company for it being managed for him for a couple of years, having no revenue. And then until he was able to generate some revenue, that was too late, that he needed to think about something else than just maintaining and trying to recover the company. That is why he was thinking about some other options than just retaining its company. I know it was sad for him to go with the resolution he took, but that was the best decision to go with because it was beyond his control.
I agree. I think he waited too long to shift to the new idea.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it was just, I mean, he could have had control of it, but he waited too long. Didn't have any revenue coming in for 2 years, and at that point, there's just nothing you can do at that point. I mean, I think earlier on he was definitely in control. He definitely could have made it work, but it wasn't taken by the reins and just handled well. So
Yeah.
it failed. I mean, but overall, I mean, I feel like it was a pretty good failure for him. Just barely starting up as an entrepreneur. He learned a lot, he said. Hopefully, if he did start up another business, it went better for him because he learned a bunch of things. I mean, it doesn't say how much they sold it for, if they came out even. I don't think it did. Maybe you guys read that part. But hopefully they came out decent when they sold it.
At least. Well, with the last section, it says, what low-cost experiment could Stephen have done to test the assumptions behind the main reason for failure? I would say, and I was thinking about a pilot version, as you were mentioning before, having just few of the target market, or one other thing could be just to include the investors to test it and make them and let them to try the product they were launching, so that way they were able to convince the investors to come and provide them with information and all of that, so that way they were able to verify that there was going to be something that was going to bring them money.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that. I think that's pretty much the lowest cost, best option that he could do is come out with a beta test or some kind of pilot test, or let investors try it out and see what they think, their opinion and everything. That I think that's the best thing he could have done. And I think if he would have done that, he would have figured it out sooner and got some revenue coming in sooner. And he might have been able to make it work. Obviously, it was still going to be a slow-growing business, but he might have been able to make it work if he would have started with those kind of things.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right, let's just do a quick summary and call it good. I think that was a pretty good discussion.
Okay. So first of all, with the opening section, which is the point 3, we would say that what they were missing was pretty much to have a business plan, because they were going just with a technology and operations strategy, since they were having no any marketing plan or any marketing strategy than just creating their product.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. They just didn't have a clear plan. And I know at some point it was saying their target market was like 20, 30-year-old guys, but most of their guys that were using it were in their 40s, I think, or 50s is what it said at the end. So their whole social media thing just was a complete failure, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't think they did enough research. I mean, when they looked at it, it showed that mostly women post on social media too.
Yeah.
And mostly men do investing. So it's kind of like your ideas are contradicting each other, and I don't think they did enough research to realize that.
Yep, exactly. So the next one, if we all pretty much thought it was doomed from the beginning, I guess, just because they didn't have a real clear set plan. and they didn't take those necessary steps at the beginning to find out what needed to be changed with the idea.
Yes, I agree. One thing to support this position is that they were having no revenue at all for a couple of years. So that's a very big hint to realize that something is not working.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They waited too long to figure out what to do after.
Yeah, and it would have been different, like if they were having revenue come in, but they were still bringing money in from investors and they were still operating at a loss. But the fact that they just didn't have anything coming in at all, like, it's just, to me, is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe other businesses do that, but I'm not. I'd have to look into that and see. It's just interesting.
It didn't help either that there was a financial crisis going on at that time.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah, that's a big deal. That actually probably hurt them a lot because at that point, the market was not good at all. So the next one, discuss Stephen's approach to the opportunity. Try to understand what, if anything, Stephen could have done differently that may have produced a better outcome. Should have had it more planned out. Should have took a pilot or a beta test to people and got their opinion and their thoughts for sure. Like that needed to be done. That was a must in my mind.
Yes, that's true. One important thing that they needed to do was to get out of the building to create a business model canvas for their business and to know what their customer was looking for. So that way they were going to be able to satisfy the customer needs. So that way they're going to be able to get feedback about what they were doing, to come up with some improvements based on the customer's feedback. And that way they're going to be able to rank very well in the market. But because this one was not done, so that is why a huge impact on their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end, as a group, can you come up with a list of ways Stephen's approach was different from Rent the Runway, and then the assumptions, and then the data layer first, and what would you have done first?
So,
what they did different from Rent the Runway was Rent the Runway went out and talked to tons and tons of people and asked them for their opinions on it.
Another important thing was the way they were getting their investors rejection, and they just stayed with their, because they were rejected. By comparing with Rent the Runaway, they did not take by granted the no answer from them, but they went and present the business model to them. So they were catching their attention to invest and work with them.
Yeah, and with Rent the Runway too, they went out and they kind of looked at their competition and see how they could beat it. And I don't think these guys kind of looked at if there was competition or did any research on that.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. And then what do you know, or how do you know which assumption to test first? I think you need to figure what's necessary. Like your target market, really who your was going to be by having people test it and everything. And then was building the right approach, what would you have done first? Front end, make it an attractive platform to use.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. One other thing was to come up with a pilot, so that way they're going to be able to show up to their investors what they were planning and what they were trying to start working with. So that way they were going to be able to not to spend that much and get some feedback from the investors who really were the ones knowing the market.
Yeah, to go on Tyler, I think they should have just gotten a graphic designer and then the front end. Got it all figured out perfectly, gone out, asked people if it was easy to use, easy to figure out. Just all you need is a simple wireframe and a PowerPoint presentation, and then go back and then do the back end.
Okay.
Identify the main reason for Cake's failure.
Lack of planning.
Lack of planning and direct target market.
Yep.
I agree with that. Okay, so I think we're done with the summary
Right.
and with the discussion. So are we still planning to meet tomorrow for the next case?
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, I do have to work tomorrow, so hopefully, if I'm not going to be able to make it, I'll let you guys know because I'm going to be gone most of the day and I haven't even started reading the next case.
Okay.
But I should be back around 6 where I can take a look at it for a couple hours before 9 o'clock tomorrow. But I'll let you guys know just to make sure.
All right, sounds good.
Let us know and we will see.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I'll send you the link.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah. See you later.